Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on building and leading high-performance teams. I'm Mark Salter. I'm the Executive Director for CFA Society Minnesota. I will get out of the way in just a moment because you're not here to listen to me. You came for different reasons. It's my pleasure to do a couple of quick thank yous. First of all, thank you to all of our annual sponsors who make possible everything that we try to do, and good professional learning events like today's event. And included among them, as you can see on the screen, is T.Rowe Price, and they were the wonderful folks who brought us the idea for today's session and the speaker that we're going to hear from. One more quick thank you, and that is to CFA Institute. Those are the they granted a free Zoom meetings license to our society and societies around the world to help us pivot from in-person events during the pandemic so that we can continue to bring you the things, the information, the content, the knowledge that you're looking for. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come on screen here for a moment and introduce our speaker, Ben Sorensen, who is the co-founder and vice president of Optimum Associates. Optimum is a premier leadership training and management consulting firm, and Ben brings a rich mix of corporate experience, nonprofit work, and teaching ability to help individuals in corporate, governmental, and nonprofit organizations improve their professional skills such as communication, resolving conflict, delivering effective customer service, providing more effective feedback to employees, and increasing organizational savvy, all of which I am sure we're going to see in spades during today's session. So we're really appreciative of the turnout today. It's we had more than 50 people sign up for this particular event. And I can only imagine that the reason you're doing it is because you want to walk out of here with some good takeaways, some good information to go back and help build your teams and make them more high performing. So Ben and I were talking about, I've never seen such an array of credentials and degrees, BA from Emory, MA from Duquesne, 2 divinity degrees from Amridge, and an MS in strategic intelligence from the National Intelligence University. That's a new one on me. I haven't seen that one show up. And then on top of all of that, a JD from Georgetown. So we are delighted to have Dr. Sorensen, otherwise known as Ben, with us today. If you have questions for him, please use the chat function. And as we go through, we will stop if needed, make him answer questions. And if not, we'll get to the end of the session, and that's when we'll pepper him with all sorts of things designed to stump him. So with that, I'm out of the way. Ben, thank you so much. T.Rowe Price, thank you for bringing us Dr. Sorensen today. Take it away.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Really appreciate all of you taking time to join together. Mark, thanks for the great introduction. And thank you, Megan, for all of your help for making this possible. And thank you, Bridget Gill at T.Rowe Price. Without T.Rowe Price, we couldn't do this. So really appreciate that. And happy post-Thanksgiving. I hope everyone's doing well. It's especially great to speak to Minnesotans as my Scandinavian forefathers and foremothers, sharing with Mark, all settled in the Twin Cities area. So I'm honored to be talking with you all and hopefully sharing some nuggets and some tools that I think can be really helpful for what you're doing day to day from a professional standpoint. Also, hopefully you'll see everything we're talking about today equally helpful in your personal lives. So hopefully you'll see the application of these skills in a variety of ways. As Mark said, please interrupt me, enter into the chat, unmute yourself. I'm not easily offended if you interrupt me. I'll take all the guidance and suggestions or feedback you have to make this as helpful for you as possible. And we're going to talk about this idea of teams. And so if I throw out names to you like Simone Biles or LeBron James or Derek Jeter, or let's talk Minnesota. So let's talk Kirby Puckett, Kent Herbeck, Bert Blyleven. When we think about those folks, what comes to mind when you think about those? What characteristics or qualities come to mind when you think about some of these individuals? You probably think about, yeah. Ron, were you going to jump in? What do you think about when you hear those names? What's that?
Winners.
Winners, yeah, winners, top performers, right? Some of the best in the world. And they were all part of teams, right? They were all part of some form of a team. And when you think about teams, what makes teams successful? What makes them excel, right? All kinds of things. I mean, you've probably ideas, characteristics running through your heads, trust, excellence, perseverance, commitment, discipline, natural ability, right? All these different things. And ultimately an ability to somehow work together, somehow find and leverage the strengths that each has. What the research finds on not just athletic teams, but financial professional teams is that the best performing teams have certain qualities and characteristics. And if as leaders of those teams, if you can identify and develop those qualities, it's not an incredibly difficult formula to put together how a team can be successful and how an average performing team can operate at a higher level. And so through our work and research at Optimum Associates and working with teams around the world and financial professionals for years, we have what I think are some really helpful skills that will help. Now, not only is this helpful for you if you're part of a kind of formal team, like you work with a couple other financial professionals, maybe you partner with another advisor, you have somewhat of a set team. These skills are going to be helpful to you if that's you, but these skills are also going to be helpful if you're just a sole practitioner. If it's just you and you've got your shingle outside the door, you still are part of an informal team, right? You might have attorneys that you collaborate with periodically or refer business to back and forth. You might have a CPA you interact with. You might have a admin that comes in once or twice a week or whatever the case may be. So whether you're part of an informal team or a formal team professionally, what we're going to talk about, I think will really help you. In addition, encourage you to think about teams outside of your work. So whether you have you're part of a religious organization, church, mosque, synagogue that you help with or you're active with, that's a team. Nonprofit organization that you're on the board of or that you help with, or your kid's school, these are all parts of teams. And I think these tools we'll talk about can be very helpful. And so here's where we're going to head today. It's a little acronym I developed for teams in terms of the core qualities that we found are really helpful when you're looking at developing and growing a team and how you can do it in very easy ways. So we're going to look at trends, the research around teams. What's it show? Why is it relevant? We're going to look at expectations. What are the clear roles you should have on a team and responsibilities and how to delineate those effectively? Then we're going to look at assignments. It's not just enough to kind of figure out what are the roles and responsibilities. It's figuring out, okay, who are the right people to get in those roles, to be operating within those responsibilities. And then that's just not enough. It's important to measure, to evaluate, to hold accountable those people as they progress, as they develop. So that's the M in team. So that's where we're going to head. And we'll jump right into the T of teams, which is trends. Excuse me. Now, with trends, here's what the research shows, that in 2019, about 49% of clients of financial professionals, about 49% sought team-based planning. In other words, sought a financial professional who had some form of team collaboration, structure around their planning practice. The estimate is in 2021, we're going to be looking at 57% of clients are going to be seeking a team-based planning, team-based professional advisory process. So more and more, the marketplace is going to looking for some form of team-based approach. Why that is, there's multiple reasons. There's a sense that you get, greater skill sets when you have a team approach. You have greater client interactions and more regular interactions. So there's a whole number of reasons why that clients are looking for this. Now, not only are clients looking for it, but the research furthermore shows that as assets under management grow, that the larger practices skew towards a team-based approach. So it's not to say smaller practices, don't. It's to say more and more of the trends show the greater ability to scale and grow a practice really increases when you have a team-based approach. That's what the research shows. And now I want to jump into, if we are interested in forming a team, or we're already part of a team and just want to make sure we're doing the right things. Here's one of the first steps that I'd suggest is do a little bit of a role inventory. In other words, evaluate what parts of a team you're missing, what parts do you have, where might there be gaps, and what are you doing specifically? What roles are you fulfilling? So here are just some examples of some roles, and this is just a short list. You're going to probably have many more and probably better ideas of specific roles that could be helpful on your team. These are just some of them. And my suggestion is, as you're kind of looking through this and you're reflecting on your team, informal or formal team, thinking about what do you have already? What roles are you personally filling? And where might there be some gaps here? Do you have some areas where you could use some added help? Being aware of that. And then the next piece is going to be, as we think about the roles and the opportunities, when there is a gap, is that a gap that would be most helpful filled through an informal relationship? A CPA that we know, across town that could be a helpful as needed to be part of our informal team? Or are we interested in more bringing someone along with that skill set that would be more part of the formal team? Just to start kind of wheels spinning as you look at roles. I was talking to an advisor this morning, and as this advisor kind of is working with a couple different teams within their practice, and what they're finding is a lot of times on teams, we're drawn towards building teams of people that have the same skill set as we do. And what he was sharing with me is he's really finding more and more that's not a good model, which makes sense. And so he's really trying to make sure they have diversity in terms of natural role alignment, natural strengths. And we'll get into that more, but I want to put that as a teaser and to make sure there's kind of good differentiation, good diversity within your team when you think about strengthening and growing your team. Now, it's not just enough to think about, okay, do we have the right roles on the team and who's doing what? The next piece is making sure we've got the right people in the right roles. This slide is somewhat complex and layers several different concepts upon it. I'll start off with this first idea. Many of you have probably done a Myers-Briggs personality assessment or DISC, one of these personality models, which are just fantastic. And because probably most of you have done one of those, I'm not going to go into great depth on it, but I'm going to show you a way how to really apply it around building teams, managing team members, leveraging those that are on your informal or formal team. So in our personality style model, there's 4 personality styles. You'll see them in each of these boxes: analyst, director, friend, extrovert. Analyst, director, friend, extrovert. Now, each of us is a combination of these 4 personality styles. Each of us has all 4 of these within us. And each of us tends to have 1 or 2 of these styles that are more dominant than the others. Now, the important part about applying this to teaming is several steps. One is getting aware, what is your dominant style as a leader on this team? What tends to be your dominant style at work? And I say at work because some of us are a little bit different when we're just in our personal lives than we are at work. So what's your dominant style at work? Second piece is understanding, what are the styles of those on your team? What are the personality styles on your team? The third piece is understanding, how can we leverage, manage, support, lead these individuals based on the different styles that we have within our team? Because what the research shows is you do not want to apply one size to all. We're all familiar with the golden rule, right? Treat others how you want to be treated. Wonderful. Is everyone like you? No. So if we're applying the golden rule to everyone, research shows we're really going to miss the mark in terms of leveraging the diverse talent on a team. Thus, we want to get the platinum rule, as we call it. Platinum rule. Platinum rule says treat others how they want to be treated. Lead others. Team with others how they want to be teamed with. And that's one of the nuances we're going to get into here. And the whole bottom line for why this matters, why this helps lead to top performing teams, is because of the word in the middle, trust, right? Does trust matter in your day-to-day, in growing relationships and getting new clients? Absolutely, right? The research shows people are constantly evaluating whether to trust you or not. Even the people that you have known for years, they're constantly evaluating whether to trust you or not. Oftentimes it's unconscious. Furthermore, there's two components of trust. In other words, there's two buckets that people evaluate you on when they're determining, is this someone that I want to team with? Is this someone I trust? Is this someone I want to engage with kind of from a long-term perspective? The two components that people evaluate in assessing should they trust you are, one, expertise. Is Ben knowledgeable? Does Steve understand the markets? Does he understand products? How long has Jerry been doing this, right? So expertise is one bucket. Second bucket they evaluate is empathy. Does Ben understand what it's like to walk in my shoes? Does he understand the fears, uncertainties, concerns that I have? Now, out of expertise and empathy, which one do you think people put a greater emphasis on? In other words, place a greater premium on people having it? Expertise or empathy? Empathy, and it's not even close. So you've got to win empathy. This is critical for your team members. What's the fastest way to win empathy? By leveraging the platinum rule, thus by understanding the different personalities and adapting to them. So let's just touch on that here. So look at the analyst. Some of the key traits of someone who has a dominant analyst style. There's someone who values precision, thoroughness. Think of someone like Bill Gates is a classic analyst. Or if you remember, if we are Star Trek fans, Spock is an analyst, right? These people, slower pace, less emotional. Okay? Why are they slower paced, less emotional? They value precision. They don't enjoy and factor in emotions into decision making. Okay? Very data driven. All right. Do you know people like this? Maybe this is you. Fantastic. Now, how do you team with them? How do you adapt to them? How do you lead with them? Well, some of the key pieces for them, very important, because analysts are not as verbose as other styles. Very important to ask for their input, get their buy-in, seek their data that they're kind of thinking through and processing. Also important with analysts that when you're talking about risks, that you talk about the downside, the liability of a risk, as well as the upside. Some people make the mistake of interacting with analysts, only talk upside. And that is a big trust buster for analysts. Important to share what's the risk, what's the downside, what's the opportunity. Also very important to be data driven. So what roles and responsibilities might be good fits for an analyst style on your team? Well, you can go back. We'll just flip back here to look at some of these examples. When you think about the research piece, is a natural fit for analysts. Some of the investment and planning and portfolio management can be other natural fits for your analysts. Doesn't mean they have to be in those roles, but those are some of the natural strengths where you see analysts fitting in. Now, the current team members spot there is just thinking about if you have current team members that are analysts, think about them. How are they doing in terms of leveraging some of their natural strengths and abilities and making sure that they're finding opportunities to really showcase their strengths on your team. AT&T is one of our clients, and they've done some fascinating research. One of the things they found is top performing executives spend more time leveraging their strengths than trying to build or compensate for their weaknesses. So are you helping to leverage the natural strengths of your individuals, your team members, based on their style? It's a natural strength they have is their style tendencies. So make sure you're finding opportunities for them to do that. Director, next stop. You see the traits there. Tend to be faster pace, make decisions pretty quickly. They like being in power, in charge. A lot of some of the director examples are people like Jack Welch, former CEO of GE, he's a director. Danica Patrick, race car driver, she's a director. Denzel Washington, he's a he's an actor. He's got director tendencies. Other examples of director of politics. If you remember, Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice under President George W. Bush, she's a director. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, she's a director. Okay, so how do you team with these folks? Very important, even if they're below you, even if they serve at a level beneath you, important to empower them, give them decision-making ability, encourage them to make decisions. They like being the decision maker. So give them a couple options. Hey, Ben, couple options here. If I were in your shoes, I'd kind of lean this way, but Ben, what do you think? Which way would you like to go? You make the call on this one, okay? Let them make decisions. Also, it's important to figure out what is most important to directors, what motivates them. Think about if you've got a client that is a director, what do they feel most strongly about? What do they want to focus on first? Ask your team members, hey, what's most important to you? What are you most excited about here? Maybe they're most excited about pay. Maybe it really gets them motivated to think about opportunities to kind of grow assets under management. Maybe they're most excited about kind of having a work-life balance. Figure out what makes them tick and then speak to that, leverage that on the team, find opportunities for them to be supported in whatever creates the most interest and urgency. And then you think about roles and responsibilities for them. Flip back here, some of the administrative pieces can be very helpful for directors. Again, some of the investment planning as well, very helpful for directors. And some of the client communications can also be interesting to directors. And again, what roles do you have maybe gaps in, and what current team members that are directors? And how are you lining up with leveraging their natural strengths? The friend, third style there, you see the traits, very loyal, very good listeners. These people love talking and sharing and building relational connection. Some examples of friends: Warren Buffett is a friend. Jennifer Aniston on Friends, she's a friend. So these folks really find enjoyment out of helping others, finding and sharing successes. Very important when you're teaming with them. Find the commonality. This is not just a business transaction. You don't just dictate down to the friend or sideways to the friend. It's about, hey, how we're partners in this. We're working together. We're all in it together, and engaging and understanding what they're going through and how you can support and encourage them, not only professionally in their professional development, but also personally. Be there for them and encourage them in what's happening outside of work. Some of the roles, responsibilities, because they're very relationship oriented, I see a lot of interest around whether it's people management, so helping with kind of supporting other team members, also the prospecting, the client communication, the engagement, the supporting, the phone calls. That can be very much within a friend's wheelhouse. And then lastly, last style here is extrovert. It's a good example of extrovert. Someone like Whoopi Goldberg's an extrovert. Presidents oftentimes have some degree of extrovert. President Donald Trump, he's part director, part extrovert. In my sense of him, President Bill Clinton, a lot of extrovert, President Bill Clinton. So what do these folks love doing? They love talking about themselves. They love taking risks. They're very much big thinkers, big visions, big ideas. Very willing to try new things. They like being innovators. And you see some of the other traits there built in on them. Very important in teaming with them, you affirm them, catch them doing things right. Very important to find and celebrate their successes. Also talk to them about their vision, their big ideas. They might have some really good innovative thinking that others might not have. And then give them opportunities to innovate, try new things, being able to be an innovator within the team. What roles and responsibilities do we see extroverts fitting naturally into? You see some of the kind of technology is interesting. Extroverts oftentimes are open and interested in that, as well as some of the people connection pieces. And they can also do some of the business management, kind of the high level visioning, planning can also be of interest to extroverts. And again, think about any current team members. do you have some extroverts? If so, wonderful. And just, are you adapting a little bit to your teaming with them in the ways we've talked about here? If you're able to build and adapt a little bit based off these styles and understand them, it can really help you grow your trust. And what the research shows, just a little bit of adapting goes a long way. In the military, I've been in the Navy now almost 13 years. I'm an intelligence officer. So I work with different communities within the Navy, and periodically I get to work with folks who do interrogating. And interrogators, one of the skills they're trained on is mirroring their subjects. In other words, using some of the same language they might, presenting ideas in a way that subject might, discussing worldviews in a way that person might. Why do they do that? It's to help build trust. So, you're not day in and day out interviewing terrorists, most likely, but you are trying to build trust and engage with your team members. So adapting just a little bit to upscale empathy and thus be on the upside of trust, hugely important in growing your teams and getting the best out of them. Before I go on to the next topic, I just want to pause here, Mark, just for questions, comments, feedback. We doing all right?
Forgot to unmute. We're doing okay. And I don't see any questions in chat just yet. So this is your opportunity to take advantage and type something in.
Perfect. Great. Feel free to jump in chat or just unmute and interrupt too. Great. All right. So now that we've talked about roles and responsibilities and how to kind of align and make sure we're looking at what gaps we might have, then we talked about, okay, trying to find the right people and put them in the right roles, or make sure that the people we've got are in the right roles. And there might be opportunities for changing some of those roles, adapting some of those roles. One of the pieces on that is that the best performing teams have a good degree of thought diversity. And what I mean by thought diversity is different styles. They bring together these different strengths that these different styles have and are able to leverage those natural differences. It's why it's interesting. Psychologists oftentimes argue that at times, if we choose people who are of different personality styles as significant others, one of the reasons we might have that interest in that person is because they bring strengths to the table that we might not have. And the same is true for a team. So just as you're thinking about your team, informal or formal, think about, what is my natural style? What are my natural tendencies and strengths? One of our biases is what's called the halo effect, which is often, it can be described as seeking people who are similar to ourselves. So just kind of going back, if we have a team full of directors, well, there can be great strengths in directors, but they're also having a team of them can have some downside and some challenges. So the diversity can be very, very helpful. Even though it might present a little bit more of a challenge to manage and team with different styles, the upside can be significant. So now that we have the kind of strength of diversity, not only important to, I'll take David's question, great. How primary are any one role assignment versus how much do they overlap? I'm having a hard time discerning what my natural style would be. Okay, good. So yeah, so David, good question. So each of us is a combination of these 4 personality styles. So at times, depending on where each of us kind of falls, some of us can actually be equally split between these 4 styles. In other words, 5% of the US population is equally divided, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. That could be you. Also, you might just have kind of shades of gray. So if you're having a tough time, that's all good. You might be kind of equally distributed across these 4 styles. The key is being aware of what tends to be your natural habit. So one suggestion I'd have for anyone as you're thinking about these styles and you're like, Ben, I'm not sure which one is my dominant style. Take notes of this and bring it back to one of your team members and say, hey, where would you put me, team member? If you had to kind of put me in one of these buckets or 2 of these buckets, what do you think is my dominant style? Get a little feedback from them, maybe your significant other, maybe someone else at work, see where they put you. It doesn't make them right and you wrong or vice versa, but it's just added feedback and guidance. And then think about that and kind of juxtapose that with roles and see what roles, based on what they're telling you, based on where you see yourself, what might be natural fitting roles, which maybe you're already doing. So good question. And let me know if I didn't answer that well, David, and shout me back. So now the key is not just getting the right people in the right roles and figure out what our natural strengths and abilities are. Now it's making sure we are measuring, holding accountable those around us. And the tool that I want to share with you here is called camera check feedback. Now, when you think about feedback, oftentimes this can be a scary word for some of us. Feedback is the idea of, hey, giving, whether it's corrective suggestions, hey, Ben, here's what you did wrong, here's what you can do to improve. Feedback can also be, hey, Ben, here's what you did well, here's what you did right. Now, go back to those folks we talked about at the beginning, Tom Brady, Simone Biles, and think about outside the athletic world, think about actors, singers. Do these people all have coaches? Do they have people that tell them how to do their job better? Absolutely, right? Think about an NFL team. How many players does how many players do the Vikings dress out on game day? How many people wear the Vikings jersey on game day on the sidelines? Any idea?
Is that pre or post COVID?
Yeah, exactly. Assuming everyone's healthy. 40, oh gosh, now I'm gonna blank. It's 46. 46 players, I think, are the number that's currently able to dress out NFL rules stipulate. It's in the 40s. 53 is a full roster. You can't dress everyone out. How many coaches does the average NFL team have? How many coaches does the average NFL team include? Nutritionists, strength and conditioning, psychologists. 23, about 23 coaches, about 46 players dress out, 23 coaches, 2-to-1 ratio. It's a lot of coaches. The best in the world have a lot of coaches. The best in the world pay millions for coaching. And it's not because their coaches are better players than they are or can perform better. It's because they really value feedback. So if the best in the world value feedback, how about you and me? Can we benefit from feedback, value feedback, right? Improve? Absolutely, right? Can your team members improve? Absolutely. Not only can they improve, but what I'd suggest are your team members, the folks informally or formally you're interacting with, working with, you have insight into them possibly no one else does. You see them operating, thinking, working in ways probably no one else does. Thus, you have a very much valued, important position to give them possibly life-changing information. And think about it. Think about a coach, boss, significant other, team member, someone in your life who has given you feedback, and that feedback has changed your life. Can you think of someone like that? Absolutely, right? I think of my third grade teacher. I think of, a coach that I had in soccer, high school soccer. We each probably have a lot of, this could be you if you can give good feedback. And so I just want to give you a tool to give good feedback. It's called camera check feedback. And I'll give you an example of camera check feedback and then describe it more fully. Here's an example of camera check feedback. True story. Jack Nicklaus, right? Amazing golfer. Jack Nicklaus in 1986, he was getting ready for a tournament in just little town in Georgia, Augusta, right? He was getting ready for the 86 Masters. And Jack was 46 at the time, 46 years old. And so the media was kind of saying Jack was getting a little too old for the PGA Tour and that he was really kind of past his prime. The Masters starts on Thursday, right? Friday night, there's a cut, right? So half the players, more or less, who are playing poorly go home. The other half stay to play for the green jacket during the weekend. All right. Jack tees off Thursday, plays so badly on Thursday, it looks like he's going to miss the cut. His iron play was bad. His drives were bad. His putting was off. He goes home to a hotel at the end of the day, Thursday, frustrated. He's sitting there in his hotel room. The phone rings. He picks it up. It's his high school golf coach who he hasn't talked to in a long time. His high school golf coach says, "Hey, Jack, I was out there watching you on the course today. Jack, your right thumb is on the left side of the club shaft. As a result, you're rotating too quickly through, and that's affecting your accuracy. Jack, move your right thumb to the right side of the club shaft, and you're going to have a slightly slower rotation and greater accuracy." End of the phone call. Okay. Jack wakes up the next day. It's Friday, goes out to the course. What does he do? Moves his thumb from left to right. World of difference. Iron plays are better, greater accuracy. He even does it on his putting. He recovers enough to make the cut. Saturday, goes back out to the course. What does he do? Moves the thumb left to right, makes a charge at the leaderboard. Sunday, left to right, same thing. Jack wins the 1986 Masters. It's one of the greatest comebacks in golf history. What was good about the feedback Jack's coach gave him? What'd you like about it? What was good about it? Anyone want to throw in the chat or unmute? What was good about that feedback? What'd you like about that? All right, got some chat. Let me pull it up here. Actionable, Andrew. Great, thank you. Exactly. It wasn't just theory. Good. Brian said it's simple, actionable, simple, direct, clear, right? Not mumbo jumbo, not a bunch of things. Phenomenal. Thank you. Thank you all for that feedback. Exactly. And you're nailing the core elements of camera check feedback. And this is just a tool that I'd encourage you to use on your professional team or personal team. I'm married and we have two little daughters, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. So I try to use this tool at home. Good. Andrew said it's from a person, he trusted. Yeah. Absolutely. Thus, the importance of building the trust on that empathy piece that we talked about earlier. Very important. That lays the foundation for people that are open to receiving feedback from you. So here are the elements of camera check feedback. The SIA camera, chronology, day and time. See how Jack's coach said, he said, today on the course. What does that do? When you're giving feedback to someone, telling them when they did something wrong or when they did something right, so important to give them context. Where were they? What was happening? That helps bring their cognitive functioning. It's fascinating what happens. It basically brings you from a more emotional part of your brain to more, it's called the neocortex, more rational, logical part of your brain. So day and time, it helps them remember where they were and start to digest what you're about to share with them. Assessment, okay? See how Jack's coach? Specific observation. This was not a general observation. This was not, hey, Jack, your swing's all screwed up, buddy. What would Jack do with that? Nothing. It would be completely unhelpful. Very specific. Laser guided munitions on this. We do not want cluster bombing. Okay. So very specific. Your thumb was on the left side. Very specific. That's one of the reasons this is called camera check feedback, because you want to give feedback that a video camera or your phone could hear or see. A video camera or your phone could see a thumb placement, right? A video camera or phone could see the words you typed in an email. A video camera or phone could hear or see what you say on the phone to a client or how you interact in a Zoom meeting, right? Be very specific. It leaves less room for challenging, disagreeing, not being clear. If you tell me, hey, Ben, you don't have a sense of urgency, I don't know what that means. Your definition of a sense of urgency is likely very different than my definition of a sense of urgency. And I'm not going to know what I need to do to meet your expectation of more quick or faster replies. So be very specific. Ben, last Monday, that client called, okay, specific observation, and you haven't returned that call. Today is now Tuesday, a week and a day since then. That's more specific. Now, next one, meaning, impact of the behavior. Don't just say, Ben, you haven't returned that call since last Monday. Give me the impact. Help me understand why that matters. See what Jack's coach said? By the thumb being on the right side, it's impacting your rotation and thus your accuracy. That helps get buy-in and understanding. Ben, by not returning that phone call, we're possibly losing trust in this relationship with this client. We're not giving the value service that we talk about in our mission statement, right? Help me understand why that matters. And then enhancement. Don't just say, here's what you're doing wrong, here's why it matters. Tell me metaphorically where to put my thumb. Next time, Ben, if you can't get back to them by Wednesday before we went on break, let me know. Let me know on Wednesday. Drop me a line. I'm happy to give them a call if you're just slammed with other stuff. So tell them how to improve. Move your thumb to the right side. And what's the result of moving it to the right side? Help them understand why that matters. Okay, why that matters. Give them the result. And then lastly, make sure it's timely. In other words, if Jack's coach waited to give him that feedback until like 2 weeks later, hey, Jack, by the way, 2 weeks ago, I was at the Masters, right? It's not going to help Jack. Take advantage of the opportunity and the time. Very, very important from a learning standpoint. And here's the research just to drive home why this is important. 65% of team members want more feedback than they're getting. 65% of team members want more feedback. They're thirsting for it. Furthermore, research shows 98% of team members start disengaging when they're given little or no feedback from leaders. 98% start disengaging. So it's really important. You know, think about Coach K, think about Bill Belichick, think about Pat Summitt, think about whoever the great coaches that come to mind. They give regular feedback, okay? And encourage you to do the same using camera check. Now, don't only use camera check feedback for corrective feedback. Ben's screwing up, so let me give some camera check. Use it for giving positive feedback as well. In other words, so we used to have an amazing rescue dog. Her name was Lila. She died when she was 16, sweetheart of a dog. Anyway, throughout her whole life, I was constantly trying to teach her how to sit. And so when she would sit, I'd say, Lila, sit. And she sat, what would I do? I'd give her a treat, right? I'd reward her. Why? Because I want to see that behavior again. The same is true for humans. Catch them doing things right. Catch them doing things right. Affirm the positive. It will increase the likelihood they will replicate that, and it increases trust and buy-in. Go back to this slide, and when we think about trust, it is so important for us to not just give corrective feedback, but in addition, give positive, affirming feedback, and don't just give general feedback. Hey, Ben, great job on handling that issue the client had. No, give camera check. Hey, Ben, yesterday, I know the client called in asking for help on that issue. Ben, I really appreciate how you couldn't take their call at that moment, but you said, hey, tell them I'll call them back in 15 minutes. You called them back in 15 minutes, and you spent 20 minutes with them on the phone looking at how they could unravel what had happened. Ben, the impact of that was huge. You resolved the issue, and you took time to deliver that world-class customer service. Use camera check for positive feedback as well. Here are some other suggestions, nuggets for improving how you give feedback. All right, so one, you see rip off rank. It's a military concept that some commanding officers do on carriers when we've got a flight wing deployed and we're coming back from like flight ops. There are commanding officers that they will, on our uniform, you can Velcro off your rank. So they'll rip off the rank as you go into a debriefing room, and basically encourages everyone to do the same. And so you debrief. The idea there, what they're trying to do, in my sense of it, is they're trying to make sure that we all feel comfortable, that we are all given a chance to give feedback up or give feedback down, and we're not going to hedge based on rank or status. So how can you do that with team members? Encourage others, and one of the ways I see it, encourage others to give you feedback. In other words, it shouldn't just be a two-way street. So set expectation for one up, one down. That's kind of a way to put it, is saying, hey, hey, Dan, I know we're going to jump on this call with this client, Dan. Hey, I'd love, after the call, Dan, let's just one up, one down. In other words, give me one piece of feedback that you think I did well, one up, and give me something you think I can improve on, do better next time. And I'm happy to do the same with you after the call. And that way we're kind of have, some engagement and learning, an opportunity for improvement. AAR, after action report, kind of that idea. So that's one way to kind of metaphorically rip off the rank and asking for improvement. I was working with someone the other day, and they always have part of when they're doing annual reviews with their team members, part of their goal for the next year is to ask their team member to help them be a better leader and to find ways, opportunities, behaviors that they can improve during the course of the year to be a better leader, be a better supporter of the rest of the team. So 50-50, most of us give more corrective feedback to a team member than we do positive feedback. Most of us give more corrective than positive feedback. I'd encourage you, try to get a little bit more closer to 50-50. In other words, as much corrective feedback, try to have as much positive feedback. Why? Because positive feedback works well. Corrective feedback works well, but catch people doing things right. Try to find opportunities to do that. And at times help people be aware that their style strengths can also lead to weaknesses. So for example, I have some extrovert tendencies, as you can probably figure out. Well, extroverts' tendencies have some great strengths. They also have some real weaknesses. Like I can talk too much, and sometimes I can talk too much about myself. So I have to be aware of that weakness that can come across when I'm with others, and try to mitigate that so it doesn't become too annoying to other people. So at times, people on your team, be aware of their natural strengths and acknowledge and lift up those strengths, and also coach them when you need to around dialing back those strengths a little bit. The sandwich technique, I think, is a really unhelpful feedback composition. It's this idea of, hey, when you're giving feedback to someone, tell them something positive they're doing, then tell them the critical feedback you want to give them, kind of the meat of the sandwich, and then end it with something nice. Baloney. Like, just, you know what? If you're going to give someone critical feedback, just give them the critical feedback. Let it stand on its own. Camera check. Boom. Ben, here's what you did wrong. Here's what you could do to improve. Okay. Then if you got some positive feedback, great, give them some positive feedback, but you don't have to kind of sugarcoat this whole thing. Inspect what you expect. Don't just give someone feedback and never check in on it again. Never ask them how the call went the next time. Inspect what you're expecting, okay? Then the other ones are pretty self-explanatory there. In terms of receiving feedback, oh, good question, Andrew. So Andrew's asking on 50-50, should you prioritize? So if you have 5 criticisms and only 3 compliments, just get 3 corrective. Yeah, good question. So by 50-50, what I'm suggesting, so a couple things. One, it is perfectly fine if you're debriefing about something and you have 5 elements that are corrective and 3 that are positive, or vice versa. That's all good. Dial it back, and in the totality of the feedback that you give to Ben, who's one of your team members, that's great. If today you give him 5 positive, 3 corrective, or vice versa. Now, in the totality of feedback that you give Ben during the course of the year, aim for 50-50, okay? So all good if you're doing it there. Try to then, if you only gave 3 positives, try to see a couple positives during the next week that he's doing well, and then you're at 50-50. 2 more positives next week, now you're 50-50. Anyway, that is a general concept. Great question. If you're really good at giving feedback, but you're horrible about when people give you feedback, your trust implodes. So you can't just be really good at feedback, but then all of a sudden, you know, Andrew or Brian's giving me feedback and I get defensive and I jump at them and start criticizing or defending myself. Not helpful. So here are just some suggestions. Ask for feedback on a regular basis. Hey, 1 up, 1 down. Hey, give me some feedback. How am I doing these last couple of weeks? Just because you ask for feedback and they give you feedback doesn't mean, one, you have to do whatever they're saying. You can disagree with their feedback. You don't have to get into argument with them, but you can challenge it. You can say, hey, you know what? I haven't seen that. Tell me a little bit of how that plays out, right? And even if you're like, you have different perspectives, all good. Hey, I appreciate you sharing that perspective. Second thing is appreciate it. Most of us do not enjoy giving critical feedback to others. I don't love going to my daughters and saying, you did not do your homework well last night. Here's what you didn't do. Now we have to correct it. It's not enjoyable to me. So most of us don't enjoy it. So when people do give you critical feedback, a lot of times it's because they want you to improve. They're invested in your success. They care about you. So appreciate it. Say, hey, thanks for giving me that feedback. You know what? I appreciate that perspective. Okay. And then if it is helpful feedback, use it and tell them how you've used it. Show them, hey, you know what? Here's what I've done. Here's how I've changed as a result of your feedback. Very helpful there. Okay. Makes sense on giving feedback, receiving feedback. Good. Great. Then here, I'll kind of wrap up here and then stop if there are any questions or comments at the end. So here's where we've journeyed today. This idea of teaming. Informal teams, formal teams can be so helpful. It can be a force multiplier for you. It can bring a diversity of thought and perspective together. It can help you scale. It can lessen stress. Lord knows we need anything to help lessen stress right now. So this can be a great opportunity for that. Okay. We talked about the trends of that. We talked about the expectations, how to set clear roles, who's doing what, okay? What are the natural responsibilities, okay? And then making sure we've got the right people doing the right things, getting the assignments right, thinking about natural strengths, personality styles, and do we have natural fits for these styles and what they're doing day in and day out, okay? Happiness increases dramatically when you find good alignment between natural strengths and roles, when there's good synergy on that. And then lastly, measurement. Make sure we're measuring performance, that we're providing accountability, we're providing camera check feedback. If you want to be a part of an incredible high-performing team, feedback is something that's regular. It's going on all the time. Now, I realize kind of equal partners, for example, it can be a little bit tough to give each other feedback, but this is important. This is what equal partners in a personal relationship do. Cultivate it, share it, okay? And then here's just some action plans. In the next 30 days, think about what roles you have, what roles are you missing, where are there gaps, okay? In the next 60 days, think about kind of who fits where there may be assignments to be changed or adjusted. In the next 90 days, make sure you're giving camera check feedback to team members at least twice a week. You should be having one-on-one interactions with each team member at least twice a month. If you can do it twice a week, giving feedback. Camera check feedback does not need to be life-altering. Ben, let's sit down and talk about your career and development. It can be, Ben, just saw your email. I really appreciated how you laid out this first, then this. Or, hey, Ben, just saw your email. Next time, here's what I'd suggest because here's what I saw you laid out first and second, and here's the impact of that. It can be very easy feedback that you can give on the phone, you can give virtually, and so forth. So take those, use them, apply them. If you put in these characteristics, these qualities, you can really help increase the performance of your team, increase trust, buy-in. And the last thing I'll share with you is baboons. Baboons. When was the last time you thought about baboons? Probably a while. A group of baboons, what are they called? It's called a troop. It's called a troop. Each troop tends to have one perceived leader. How often does the average member of a troop look at the perceived leader? A minute. How many times a minute does the average member of a troop, baboon troop, look at the leader? About 20 times a minute. About 20 times a minute. That's a lot. Why? Cues. What are they doing? What's the leader thinking? Is the leader happy, sad? Is the leader getting ready to do something, to run, relax? What's going on? This is happening to you. Your clients, prospects are looking at you more than you are aware because they view you as a leader and expert. Your team members, formal or informal, are looking at you more than you are aware. Thus, model these behaviors that we've talked about. If you do that, you will have a scaling impact on them using some of the same behaviors, skills, and abilities, making your team all the more successful. So, and by the way, I'm again Ben Sorensen. I'm on LinkedIn, so feel free if I didn't answer something well or you have another question, just feel free to throw me a message on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help. Mark and Megan, thank you. Thank you, T.Rowe Price, for making this possible. I'll turn it back over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Ben. And I have a little feedback for you. You need to up your energy level. I just never got excited here today.
I'm going to work on that, Mark. I'm going to try 5 more coffees and a couple Red Bulls and see if that does anything.
Excellent. So, and on your last story, I couldn't help but think about the last time I saw baboons was with my grandson at the Minnesota Zoo. And then all of a sudden I found myself looking at all of the video, the people on video right now with their cameras on and putting baboon masks on them. It was just not a pretty sight. I'm sorry. So good. We made Dan smile. I love it. Okay. Any other last second questions for Ben? Megan put in the chat that we'll be sharing the slide deck post-event. And yeah, and be sure and watch for the evaluation that comes out in the near future. But last call for questions. Dan, you unmuted. Do you have a question? Yes.
I did, yes. A really quick question. Is there some sort of, other than just doing your own analysis of your team members, is there some more kind of formal way to assess their role type? Because you had mentioned, what, 5% have kind kind of a balance among each of those different 4 roles. So, you know, what's a better way to assess where team members fall if your assessment might not be, you know, exactly accurate?
Yeah, great. So there's a couple tools. So Myers-Briggs has a good online tool that's free. You just Google like Myers-Briggs personality assessment. If you can't find it, Dan, just LinkedIn me. I'll send you the link, which does a good personality style assessment as well.
Yeah, got it. So, but Myers-Briggs will get you into kind of those 4, the analyst, director, friend, extrovert, as well as just the traditional Myers-Briggs. Okay.
Yeah. So Myers-Briggs will basically have a corresponding, let me just get here, corresponding to each of these 4 styles. ENFJ is kind of the, it's what I am. So it corresponds, the ENFJ correspond with these in a certain way. And again, I'm happy to kind of help you correlate that and then use that, overlay that with the roles we're talking about.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good question, Dan. Thank you. So I will, I'll do a quick shout out from one other assessment tool that you guys may find helpful. CFA Society Minnesota, the board of directors, the last couple of years, we've used what's now called Clifton Strengths. It used to be called Strengths Finders. And it's been fascinating over the last couple of years as board members join and leave to see what the blend of different strengths are within the board. Not quite the same kind of analysis, but it helps us identify where the gaps might be and where we might need to recruit specifically for a given strength. As you might guess that most of the folks score high on the analytical scale. Not necessarily true. We've got a number of strategic thinkers on the board right now, which is good. So good. Any other questions? If not, we're going to give you back 1 more minute in your lunch hour. Go use it productively. Go make sure you give some good positive feedback to your team members in the next 30 seconds. And once again, Ben, thank you. Thank you, T.Rowe Price. And thanks for everybody who joined us today. Really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you virtually in the near future. Take care, everybody.
Thank y'all.